What's up, Chaos Carnival Carnies? I'm Quackersco, and this is the fish fry for October 19th, and it's being held at Fission Hydroplant. The cookware for this rotation is the Aerospray MG, the Carbon Roller, the Explosher, and the Jet Squelcher. Moving between the platforms on Fission will yield the best results, and wall jumps will help get you from one side to the next. So make sure you practice them to know how they work. And if we ever find ourselves going out to the shoreline, the quickest route back is always the best to make sure you stay as safe as possible. And Fission can be very unpredictable, so make sure you utilize all the different inclines and short walls to your advantage on moving enemies around. And if you ever go into that center pit where the basket is, just make sure you go in, get what you need done, and get yourself back out. Make sure you can get around and get where you need to be. There's times where eggs on the shoreline are going to seem really tantalizing. Just make sure if you do get down there, you get your way back up, because that damage is needed on other parts of the map to support your teammates. So be careful about running more than 2 eggs at a time. And if you don't know how useful painting every little bit of the wall is, trust me, every single little drop matters on this map. And the more you help your teammates out, the better their morale is, and they'll help you out. And a tip for Salmon lids, try to never jump onto them when you're in kid form. Just try to always swim jump into them as squid form. You'll get a little extra height on your jump. And if you're collecting eggs by the shoreline, or in a moment where they seem really risky, make sure you squid roll out. That way you have just a little bit of armor in case something surprises you. That little bit of armor you get can come in handy sometimes. And since we have the Explosher in this rotation, it's helpful to know that that projectile acts like a bomb. And with its range, you don't really need to get to the shoreline to take them out. And if you look at your feet when you're being targeted, those little green lines tell you where the flyfish missiles are coming from. So if it's a fog occurrence, that might help you understand where you need to get to in order to provide that firepower. And during a Cohawk charge, it's always helpful for the weapons that have a little bit more paintability, work the sides confusing the salmonids so that the people in the turrets can take out the bosses. And that extra coverage with their weapons will help them with their egg running. Sometimes it will be helpful for weapons to switch roles in order to provide firepower in specific areas. But remember, when you're dealing with the Explosher, that piercing damage will go through every single one of them. So if you want to use it during a Cohawk charge, make sure you use that splash damage more than the piercing damage to take out the Cohawks. And during a Glowflies match, it's now been proven that the 2 higher platforms are not a good area because of where the salmonids spawn and the unpredictable movement that they have. If you use this corner platform and this other side with the incline, as long as all of your teammates spread out and collectively cause damage to the horde, you'll find it easier to survive as long as you swim in between the 2 of them, providing damage and painting while you're moving in between them. It's always helpful to activate a special, but this system has been proven to work pretty well. And if you find yourself with the Explosher, just remember that that piercing shot will go through the Goldie. So try to make sure that that explosion lands right at the foot of the Goldie. That might help trivialize and help you clear a Glowflies round. And the same can be said for grillers. Since we have the Carbon Roller, and the only thing that it can splat while rolling is small fry. It can hold its own with this strategy on a griller's match, as long as you remember to put that roller down to splat the small fry, it should be a cinch. And luckily, the Explosher's blast explodes on the grillers. If you can get it just right, you can take out small fry and cause some damage to the griller. But try to make sure you use that Explosher to wall paint. 2 shots paint that wall pretty instantly. And as I said before, the Explosher's blast counts as a bomb. So if you find yourself in a mudmouth wave with the Explosher, try to take out those mudmouths as fast as possible. Since they're what spawned the lessers, the quicker you take out those mudmouths, the less lessers you have to deal with. So try to move from mudmouth to mudmouth, maybe collecting 1 or 2 eggs as you go. And there will be so many golden eggs all over this map, your teammates won't know what to do with all of them. So there's no point on putting yourself in a weird position to cause damage. Because of that piercing damage, get yourself in a really nice position and just let it go. And this rotation should make motherships no problem. The Jet Squelcher and the Explosher can take out Chinooks while they're on their way to the stage. And they can also cause damage to the mothership while they're on their way in. If you have the Explosher, if you can land the shot on top of the mothership, you can use that splash damage and the piercing damage to take out Chinooks as they're spawning, dropping eggs right by the basket. And that piercing damage is also really helpful during a giant twister match. Try to position yourself as one of the last 2 in the egg chain. That way you can maximize the piercing and splash damage that the Explosher has to offer. High ink usage weapons don't work well as egg running because throwing eggs uses so much ink. And the only bummer occurrence with the Explosher is a Goldie Seek. Since that projectile goes through the Goldie, you have to really make sure that that explosion happens right at the foot of the Goldie to keep releasing eggs. Alright, let's get into the cookware. Our first utensil is the Aerospray MG. The Aerospray MG has a really great fire rate, but its damage is a little lacking. What makes it great is it doesn't take that much ink to use, which makes it a really good weapon for having enough ink to throw a bomb, but it also has enough coverage and damage that you can push towards shoreline bosses like stingers. Just make sure you find your way back to the basket, because that coverage and extra damage is needed. Our next cookware is the Carbon Roller. The Carbon Roller has very rough wall paintability, so it's better used to keep that roller on the ground and cover turf. And because the roll is so weak, you gotta be really careful to not get bounced around and find yourself in a sticky situation. It does have some strengths, so make sure you use them. That flick causes really quick damage to stun a scrapper or to take out a fish stick. It also helps really well on flicking a couple times on a flipper flopper splat zone and then rolling over the rest of it. The third utensil is the Explosher. As mentioned before, the wall painting of the Explosher is exquisite, and that large piercing damage blast that it sends out can control corridors really well. But you have to make sure you choose where that blast lands. If you're dealing with a long horde, you might find those cohawks getting a little too close. We really have to think of creative ways of taking these bosses out. If we aim to the right of a fish stick, the enemies stay in our reticle for a longer amount of time, causing us to take more of them out with a single shot. And since our piercing shot doesn't go through a Salmon lid, we still have to aim for the top of it, and it will pierce through them, so make sure that blast lands right on the top of the Salmon lid. Luckily, it does not pierce through a steelhead bomb, so 2 shots will take it out no problem. And interestingly, the salmonid that pilots the scrapper is considered a lesser, and our piercing shot can go through it, so we can position the scrapper in some locations to use that piercing damage to even more of an advantage. So make sure you keep your ink topped up so you can use the Explosher to its best ability. Insane damage where it needs to be, and lane control. Insane lane control. You can also fire 2 shots at the left and right side of the splat zone of a flipper flopper for better luck of capturing it. More than anything, if you stay calm with this weapon, you'll find great success. Our last utensil of this rotation is the Jet Squelcher. The Jet Squelcher is probably the most perfect range weapon for Gone Fission. Not just does it have incredible damage at range, being able to take out flipper floppers in one jump, but it can reach just about any shoreline boss from the top of the hydro plant. So make sure you utilize this weapon's range more than anything else. Move amongst the platforms, confuse the salmonids, and take out those bosses before they become a nuisance. And remember that the fish fry comes out before the stage rotation, so if you want to catch these updates when they're hot and fresh, make sure you subscribe and hit that bell. And if you want other fellow Grizzco employees to receive these tips, make sure you like and share the video. Bye-bye!